All right, so go ahead and look at methods that are going to return some new arrays. So we're going to work on a couple of those. So let's go ahead and create a method called, and this is one called union. And I've given this on a 2168 exam before with, let's see, actually union might be a bit difficult. Yeah, those might be a bit weird. Returning new arrays. Let's see. Yeah, not union, because that doesn't really work for arrays. We'll work on interweave. So I've definitely given this one on they gave this one in, I think, in the 2168 practice exam. This one's a fun one. So public, static, and here what we want is a new integer array. Interweave, no, interweave. And here I'm going to change up the notation because I have two arrays. I'm going to use int array A and int array capital B. That's just the way I do it. It's perfectly fine to do the break convention like that. And here I'm going to put return null. Null being keyword for nothingness. And that's just going to let my program compile as I work on it. So what is interweave? Let's say we want let's go ahead and say I want 2 items. So I have 2 arrays. So you have 2 arrays. I've got 1, 0, let's see, 0, 4, and 8. And then 1, 3, and 11. No, I'll do -1 because I don't want you to get the idea that it needs to be sorted or anything, right? So given 2 arrays, I'd like to create a new array that produces this. The variables interwoven. So that means 0 is first, then we've got a 1. So first A, then first B. So A's 0th item, B's 0th item, then A's first item, and B's first item, and then C's first, and then A's first item, the 0th item, then the first items, and then the second items, if we're counting from 0. So A's index 0, B's index 0, A's index 1, B's index 1, A's index 2, B's index 2. And I keep wanting to say C for some reason, even though there's no C. So for simplicity, what we're going to do is that we are going to assume that this problem has no, we're going to assume that this problem has no possible, we're going to assume this problem has basically the same input sizes. So A and B are going to be the same size. So what we're going to say is that if A dot length not equal to, ooh, that's cool, B dot length. That's cool, that little trick that it did there. Not equal to B dot length. Right, it turned my, what did it do? It turned that, and then as soon as I put them together, glued them together like that. Is that a font feature, or is this a feature of JGrasp? That's pretty cool. It's making me feel that JGrasp is not necessarily the greatest thing for doing teaching, and that I should be in clips, because I do not want that feature to happen. I like that when I'm coding, but I don't want that when I'm teaching. I want people to actually see what I have. Like, so if I control C this part, you'll see that as a boom, not. It's just hiding it. Okay, so if their lengths are not equal to each other, we'll go ahead and do that return null, which is generally a very impolite thing to do, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and stop the problem. We don't need an else after that because that's just what's going to happen. So we're going to go ahead and now need to make a new array, right? Because array A and array B they're not going to be able to fit the whole answer, right? They're both going to be half the size of the full answer. So int c is equal to a new array, new integer array. How big is it? Well, it's a dot length plus b dot length. Okay. So, and then we'll create that, and then rather than returning null, we'll go ahead and return c. That's pretty cool. So, and now we just need to copy all the items over. So for int I is equal to 0, I is less than a dot length. We don't need to do, we could do a dot length and I is less than b dot length, but we've already established that they're the same length. So putting in b dot length is unnecessary, but if you makes you feel better, you can do that. Yeah, it's like doing a little bits of the font thing. Is that a factor of the font that I chose, or is that a, let's go ahead and just choose Courier and see. Yeah, that's a factor of the font I chose. How interesting. I like it. I like it. Can't use it for class because that is that just feels so wrong in so many ways. So we'll just go ahead and use Consoles, which is built into Windows. I like it. I'll switch it back at some point. Okay. So int I is equal to 0. Int I is less than a dot length. Okay. So now, what are we going to do? We are going to first take, okay, this is going to be a bit weird. So can I do, and this might be something where you do trial and error. So C is equal to, so C is, so let's say CI is equal to the AI. And if you're going to use single letter variables, which you shouldn't, I'm being bad here, for these things, then make them capitalized so that so at least you know you're dealing with, arrays. So then you say, okay, so I want the one next to it, the one after I plus 1, told B of I. So let's go ahead and see if that works. It doesn't work. Arrays dot. So let's go ahead and do int A is equal to 0 to 4 int B is equal to, yeah, I've totally botched the way this is supposed to be. We'll come back to that. It's equal to 1, 3, 5. So that will produce 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ideally. So now interweave A, B, right? And you'll be like, great, I can test this now. Except, of course, what did we do? We printed out the array, the memory location of the array. Oops, that's not what we wanted. We wanted arrays dot toString of this answer. So, right, I've got a method call inside a method call inside a method call. Nothing to get too excited about, right? Because we're just printing out the string that results from turning the array into a string that's the result of interweaving A and B. And that gives us 0, 2, 4, 5, no. Why is that? Well, remember, we wanted to look. So this is why I test you on paper, by the way, which I go over in a separate video. The reason I test you on paper is because it's really important that you understand what you write. It's not enough for you to be able to just solve a problem by testing and guessing. You got to write something down and go, well, wait a second, if I do that, yeah. So when I is equal to 0, okay, I'll copy, this will work. I'll copy this into index 0 and this into index 1. But when I is 1, I'll copy this into index 1 and this into index 2. And then when I is 3, I'll copy this into index 1, 4 into index 1, and 3 into index 2. Oh, in this case, it was, I'll copy 2 into index 1 and 3 into the index 2. And then I'll copy 4 into index 2, and then we'll copy 5 into index 4, or 3, rather. Basically, we were working in pairs. So we were saying copy over 0 and 1, and then 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5. So we kept overriding it. So we want to copy 2 things at a time. So for 0, we want to start at, we want this to be, sorry, when I is 0, what do we want these to be? We want this to be 0. We want this to go into index 0. We want this to go into index 1. We want this to go into index, so we want this to go into index 0. We want this to go into index 1. We want this to go into index 2, and this to go into index 3. This to go into index 4, and this to go into index 5. So this needs to go into index 0, index 1, then needs to go into index 2, and this needs to go into index 3. This needs to go to index 4. This needs to go into index 5. So some relationships you might notice there. This always goes into an even index. This always goes into an odd index. Interesting. But just using this, I won't cut it, because here we'll put this instead. It'll go into index 1, 0, then index 1, then index 2. And this will go into index 1, 2, and 3, which is not what we want. So think about this. The answer is changing something over here, but think about what needs to be changed. Think about it, and come back to this. Go and work on it on yourself. Okay? Have you worked on it? Are you just waiting for me to answer? I mean, the only way you're going to get good is practicing. I would have been able to solve this if this was my first semester too, just off the top of my head. That's why I'm giving you the opportunity to practice. You're watching this on a video, I presume. Maybe you're watching it at the phone, and that's okay. You don't get the chance to practice, but you should, if you're watching on the laptop or something, give it a shot. Pull up your IDE and give it a shot. You just need to change something over here in both these lines. Ready? So what we do is that what we're going to, well, we want this to be in indices 0, 2, and 4. So we're going to put, so when this is 0, this is going to be 0. When this is 2, this is going to be 2. When this is 4, this is going to be 4. Sorry, this is 0, this is going to be 0. When this is 1, this is going to be 2. When this is 2, this is going to be 4. That's nice. So what about making this one? And I'll put this to be explicit. Well, we put this one in the index 1 after that. The way I kind of mentally visualize this, by the way, is that +1 is 1 to the, well, my location, this is my right, so I guess this should be your right. So 1 to the right. So this is the index to the right of this one. Okay, so now if we do this, that works, because this will be indices 0, this is indices 0, 2, and 4. And then we need indices 1, 3, and 5. Okay, so that's a pretty nice one. Not too many methods require you to write something like that. But here's one I'd like, now I'll probably do this one in class. So I'll leave this one for class when we get back on Monday, that function. Right now, signing off. See you in the next video.